Hello, my name is Elizabeth Thomas. Welcome and thank you for checking out the pre-session information on communication and some strategies you can use to develop your communication plan. This recording will cover strategies for communicating about challenges you may be experiencing, managing expectations, alternative strategies, things to avoid, and about planning in general. Relationships are all about communication. If you attended the Preparing for Deployment workshop, we introduced what communication might look like during deployment. We're going to take a few minutes right now to review some of this material. We begin by getting you to think about what forms of communication you are used to using with your loved one. We may not realize just how reliant we are on our current forms of communication until a deployment. We're thankful and fortunate to be able to communicate fairly regularly during deployments now compared to years ago. However, there are still challenges to think about, like time zones, different schedules, and communication blackouts. Communication blackouts can happen for a variety of reasons and can throw a wrench into the communication plan when you are used to having steady, regular, and reliable contact with your family member. Blackouts might be scheduled or may be unexpected. If you become concerned or aren't sure if a blackout is going on, you can contact the MFRC deployment staff or the duty padre if there's something more urgent. If your loved one is deployed on a ship, the MFRC will often hear from the ship's command if there is going to be a scheduled blackout, so we can let families know. Like other parts of the deployment, managing expectations is key. Ideally, before your family member leaves, you are able to talk about each other's expectations. If not, this conversation can still happen as you negotiate this in real time. Talk about what would happen if you have big news to share, good news, or not so good news. In case of emergencies, the duty padres can help contact the ship. Creating communication plans can be helpful as you strategize on ways to communicate during deployment. Many family members find communication plans useful and help them to manage expectations. Some areas to consider are how often you will try to communicate, what is realistic with everyone's schedules, how and what methods you will use, what will be even available, what will you do when technology isn't working, the line is breaking up or calls drop or the screen is freezing. How much do you want to know? And what do you want to know or not know? Other questions to ask yourself and your partner are, what can you discuss effectively without a lot of upset? And knowing what are your communication hotspots. Here are a few of our communication tips for families to consider. I statements. I feel like this, not you made me feel like this. Never underestimate the valuable tool that I statements can be. Active listening. Think about your body language if you use video calls. Ask for clarification and more information. Naming emotions that you are feeling is important too. Recognizing thought distortions or how our thinking affects us, like mind reading or thinking things are worse than they are, kind of awfulizing or personalizing everything like it's your fault and it pertains to you. Remember all the reasons you're in this together and tell each other the things you appreciate about each other. Be mindful that the plan may not work out the way you had hoped for some of the time, but there is a better chance that you will be on the same page more often with a plan. Plans can also be renegotiated as need be. There may be misunderstandings that can lead to worry, so try as much as possible to be kind and patient with one another. Unfortunately, mind reading is not one of the possible communication methods available. Let's unpack a little more of the pros and cons to some of the commonly used communication methods. One option could work best for a few months, but may need to be changed as the deployment continues. One thing about phone, text, chat, and instant messaging and video calls, they're in real time. So let's take a look at some of the strengths and challenges of those. For the phone, the access to audio helps couples use tone of voice for clear communication. It can be important for time sensitive or serious talks. Phone calls can be good for decision making, and it's most gratifying for couples in long distance relationships. Some of the challenges are it can be expensive. The risk of venting and rising conflict between partners can happen. Waiting for use of shared phone cuts into the service member's free time. Calls might be overheard by others, and there's a higher risk of unintentionally sharing mission sensitive information. For texting, it's good for talking about things such as the plumber came today. It can be helpful for brief assurances of safety or quick check-ins such as we're doing okay here or Johnny got an A on his paper. The challenges are for texting, chat, and instant messaging is not hearing your partner's tone of voice or seeing facial expressions can lead to misunderstandings. The partners at home might feel tied to their phones if they're waiting to receive messages. For video calls, there's some of the strengths are the ability to hear voice tones and see facial expressions can reassure safety and well-being. And family members are more likely to communicate openly and positively. Some of the challenges are it requires equipment and planning. There can be an increased risk of arguments. It's the least accessible for those deployed, and privacy concerns since video might be overheard or seen by others. Some things to, let's take a look at some more here. Communication is an area we have seen great creativity from family members. Some family members hide notes and letters in pockets before they depart or have cards prepared for special occasions. Care packages are also opportunities to communicate. Some couples learn the art of a love letter. Children can also find ways to communicate through pictures, answering questions asked by parents in emails or texts, and keeping a list of things to share can be as well, so you don't forget anything when you get a chance to talk. Letters and email tend to be delayed form of communication. For letters, some of the strengths are it's inexpensive and no equipment is required. It's personalized and can be read multiple times. There are fewer security concerns. All family members can initiate a letter, and it's linked to marital satisfaction. Some of the challenges to letters, they're slow and sometimes unreliable delivery. It's a factor. It's not ideal for decision-making or issues that require discussion. Emails, the strengths are they're reliable and rapid in timing and delivery. Family members can feel comfortable sharing their feelings. Among internet-based communication, it's the most linked to marital satisfaction. Some of the challenges with emails, their written communication can lead to miscommunication, can't read between the lines. Service members might not always have secure access to internet. Some things to avoid in communication include who had it worse game or the Martyr Olympics. It's a game we rarely win, even though it's very normal to feel this way from time to time. Try not to keep score of who said I love you the most or who sent the most emails so far or who the military member talked to the most or keeping score between partners. Be cautious of overusage of social media or in media in general. Other considerations to be mindful of are communicating when you're upset. The tone of technology can sometimes be misinterpreted. What is that exclamation mark meaning? It's also good to know that discussion about the mission may be limited and conversations may not be private. When you join us for the upcoming workshop, Couples Connecting While Apart, we will be exploring the cycle of deployment or the adaptation curve, deployments and relationships, Connection and attachment. Well, what's working? Connection builders, your deployment story, and resources. We look forward to meeting you virtually at the workshop, and we'll see you then.